I watched a movie called The Woman in the Yard. I was convinced that this was the lowest we could possibly sink for horror films by the title alone. But it's a Blumhouse film, which means it's going to make money no matter what. And I went yesterday, and it was a sold out theater, basically. I had to sit in the front row. Do you understand how mad I was? I was sitting there steaming. I have had no problems for any release over the last 6 months, no matter how big. Yet somehow the fucking Woman in the Yard at 10:30 p.m. I can't get out of the front row loony bin. I'm just sitting there breaking my neck staring straight up at it like I'm trying to catch a fucking golden shower with my mouth open. For The Woman in the Yard, I was livid. My eggs were scrambled. I sat there with my arms crossed pouting by the time the movie started. Which it's not the movie's fault. I mean, good for The Woman in the Yard. It's putting asses in seats somehow. That shit is selling tons and tons. I bet it's gonna make a fucking fortune off of like $12 million budget or something, I imagine. Because Blumhouse, all they do is like really low budget horror films, so everything is a profit. I've said that is the smartest model, and I don't know why more Hollywood studios don't follow that model. They only ever make money. No matter how catastrophic or how boring, lazy, or generic it is, you make a low-budget horror film, you're going 3x on your budget plus marketing. So I have no doubt The Woman in the Yard is going to follow suit, especially considering the turnout I saw for it yesterday, which I am still stunned by. This had more movement than the Halo 3 midnight launch. I don't know what people are seeing in the trailer for The Woman in the Yard that makes them think it's going to be good. It's not. I thought at best it would be fun bad. It's not. It's just boring. It's not even bad, per se. It's not like a horrible film. It's not terrible, but it's not good. So it doesn't get to have the luxury of being enjoyably stinky. It just is mediocre, which I think is the ultimate sin. Because again, you can be bad and charming and memorable and enjoyable, or you can just be good. But if you're neither, you go right down in purgatory and you're forgettable and boring, and I feel like I wasted my time watching it. I want to give you my review, though. As the title would indicate, there is a woman in the yard, almost immediately. They name drop the title within the first 10 minutes. So the story is about a family that's going through a loss. The mother and father were in a car accident which claimed the life of the husband. However, the mother survived and is overcome with a lot of trauma, and the family still is, of course, feeling the loss of the father. It's only been a couple of weeks since that accident, and when they were downstairs eating, one of the kids, named Taylor, said, "Hey Mom, there's a woman in the yard." So the mother goes and checks, and sure enough, there's a fucking woman in the yard. So, as you've seen in the trailer, it's a woman sitting in a chair in the yard. So, the title did not lie. It is not false advertising. You get what you pay for right away. You get a woman in the yard, and she is posting up. She is slabbed up in the middle of the yard, and it's odd because she's dressed like it's like morning attire. It's very weird and concerning. So the mother goes and checks, and of course the mother is going through a rough time, and she's taking all of her anger and frustration out on her kids. She is miserable. And she goes out. She still has an injured leg from the car accident, so she's on crutches, and she goes out. So she says, "Hey, why are you sitting in the yard, lady?" And this leads to a short and odd conversation between the two of them, with the woman in the yard eventually revealing some blood in her hands. And that's when the mom goes, "Jeepers, this is a threat now. This woman in the yard is dangerous," so she goes back inside, locks all the doors, and it turns out her chickens have been slaughtered by the woman in the yard. So, do you care about spoilers? My guess is probably not. I'm going to get into spoilers so I can tell you why I think the movie's pretty fucking boring. So you have been warned. I'm going to get into spoilers for The Woman in the Yard. But before I do that, I will say there are a couple of things I actually think are pretty solid about the film. There are some really good shots, and I do mean that. There are some actually good shots in here that I did not expect from The Woman in the Yard. They had really cool shots, especially when it came to a certain sequence that involved glass. And the powers of the woman in the yard, I think, look cool and are at least something different than you usually see in horror films, and got pretty creative with it. I also think the acting was good, particularly from the mother. So, it's all the good stuff out of the way. Now, into the spoilers. This movie is the epitome of that SpongeBob meme. He's just standing there menacingly. That is the whole film. There is nothing that happens outside of the family bickering. The mother is terrible to her kids. She is going through some horrible things, and she is taking it out on her family. The entire, I'd say 70% of the film is focused on her being mean to her kids, and one of her kids, Taylor, kind of talking back and being like, Mom, you're not acting like yourself. And the mom's like throwing glass on the floor, even throws something at her kids. And then that's like the bulk of the film. Meanwhile, they'll just keep looking out the window and noticing the woman in the yard is getting closer. So that's it. There's not really scares. There's just occasional loud noises, but no scares. Eventually, as the woman in the yard gets closer, the kid, Taylor, decides to take matters into his own hands because his mother is completely incapable of protecting them at all. She has, like, no survival instincts. So, like, the power has been off all day, so they haven't been able to, like, call for help. The mother's phone is not charged, so they also can't call for help there. The Jeep battery is dead, so they can't go and, like, scram and get out of there. But Taylor is constantly coming up with other solutions. Like, okay, so the power's not working, we can't call for help. But what if we just start running to the neighbors to call for help to get this woman in the yard out of here because she's scaring us? And she's like, no, you can't do that. And it's like, well, why the fuck not? She's just sitting in the yard. We've established she's not going anywhere. This kid could easily run to the neighbors, which he says he can do. He even said I could drive the car there. She's like, no, you don't drive the car. And it turns out the car's dead. But, like, he's the only one offering solutions. He's like, okay, I'm going to get Dad's gun and I'll shoot her. And she's like, no, you will not do that. And it's like, what the fuck? He's the only one with any sense in the whole film. Now, of course, I think that's the point, because, big spoiler here, the whole film is about the mother and what she's gone through with the trauma after losing her husband in a car accident that she feels she is responsible for. That's the big twist. So the woman in the yard mentioned during their conversation she had been summoned by the mother. The mother's confused on what it meant. And then we get to the last half of this film. So now we see the woman in the yard. She's standing up from her chair. Now she's using her powers, and her powers are shadow manipulation. And there's some cool shots with this, where she has, like, her arm as a shadow reaching up and she hits a wind chime for a scare. Or she's using her shadows in the house to pick up things and throw them around, which I think is the most cliche shit ever. I am so tired of that fucking horror movie trope where things just move around like, ooh, spooky, moving fucking plates and shit. But at least using the shadow powers to do it was cool looking. It really reminded me of Courage the Cowardly Dog with that episode where, like, the shadows fight each other. I love that. I love Courage the Cowardly Dog, and I can always find ways of tying it into movies I watch because Courage just had so much good shit to it. So it did remind me of that. But the shadows were a cool idea, and there was some creativity there where they started closing blinds in order to take away shadows so she couldn't use it. Like, it was good ideas that really feel worthless in a movie like this, unfortunately. So anyway, after she starts demonstrating her powers and they start countering it by getting rid of the shadows, it then goes into, like, a totally separate movie after they end up in the attic. After they've run away from the shadows and they're up in the attic. Where it just becomes a fucking totally different movie. It gets so trippy and surreal. It has, like, time-altering elements where the mother, like, she starts going to, like, the past where her husband is there, and we get to, like, see that, and it's like a happily ever after thing, but it turns out it's like the mirror dimension, so everything's like flipped. Then she comes back to reality, but now she's the woman in the yard, so she's sitting in the chair. So now we're seeing the movie play out in front of her as the woman in the chair from her perspective. Like, these are cool ideas and they look cool, but it doesn't fit with the rest of the film that's just been established. It just comes out of nowhere. Like, it seems like what happened is they had the woman in the yard and they want it to be like this really formulaic, throwaway, dog shit horror film. And then the director's like, this sucks. I really want to try something. They're like, okay, as long as we just get some tickets, some asses and seats, just put it to the end of the movie. Who cares? So he decided to get experimental. And I appreciate what he tried to do, but I just don't think it works for the movie. What ends up happening is the woman in the yard is there because the mother wants to end her own life. She's going through so much grief and she feels like her kids are going to be so much better off without her. So the woman in the yard is there to help her do that. And that's where you get to the ending of the film where she has like a gun to her head and the woman in the yard's like helping her pull the trigger to end her own life. And then she doesn't. She walks away, her kids come back, and it's happily ever after. But then it turns to one of the pictures and her name, Ramona, is backwards. Thus, the implication is she did take her own life and now she's in the mirror dimension of the happily ever after that's not real. It's a very bleak ending and it takes a lot of fucking balls to do that. So ultimately the message of the movie is she couldn't move on from her grief, thought her kids would be better off without her, so she shoots herself in the head. It's a pretty crazy message to send, really. And I can at least appreciate it tried to do something at the end here, but it takes the last 15 minutes and just crams so much shit all at once. Tons of different ideas, different imagery, all overloading you in like 10 minutes. it just doesn't mesh with the rest of the movie. So overall, Woman in the Yard is not a good movie, but it's also not a terrible film either. I really think it's just a boring film at the end of the day. That had some good ideas, it had some clever moments, it had some good acting, but it didn't really do anything. And it's hardly even a horror film in the first place. So yeah, overall, not a great movie. I just wanted to give you the little review on it. That's about it. There's a lot you could say about this film, but one thing that you can never criticize it for is that it lied to you. There was a fucking woman in that yard for over an hour doing nothing. That's pretty cool. That's about it. So yeah. A couple of nights ago on stream, someone proposed watching every video game movie ever made and then ranking them from best to worst to find like the definitive best video game adaptation. And I really liked that idea, so that's exactly what I'm doing. And I wanted to kick this off by starting with the Silent Hill movies.
To find your daughter, you must face the darkness of hell.
It's okay, baby. Mommy's coming.
There's one from 2006 and one from 2012. I vaguely recall watching them when I was younger, but I don't really remember shit about them. I just know a lot of people consider them to be an affront to God, like a huge insult to the franchise. There's a lot of people that really hate them, but as with everything, I approach it with an open mind and open cheeks, so I was going into this with a blank slate, ready to either be impressed or depressed. I started with Silent Hill 2006.
Marker?
It's directed by Christoph Gans. He was a fan of Silent Hill and pitched this idea to bring it to life on the big screen, and interestingly enough, he is still closely tied to Silent Hill to this day and is actually slated to helm a new Silent Hill movie called Return to Silent Hill. So is that hopeless or hype? Well, if Silent Hill 06 is anything to go by, I'm pretty fucking hyped for it.
The painting was done by a scenic artist here in Toronto. His name is John Fraser, and he probably spent 3 weeks working on the painting at night while we were building the set around him. He'd come in after, as we went home, and he'd put the lights on and paint away. We'd come in the morning and there'd be a little more built. We actually took pictures of some of the art department people in some of the costumes of the and painted them into the painting. You probably wouldn't be able to pick them out, but there are a few art department people in there.
I don't know why people poo-poo and spit on Silent Hill 06. Like, it's not like Sonic 06, you know, where it's like irredeemable dog shit or anything.
What the hell is even that?
This movie's pretty good. It's got tons of flaws, sure, but as far as video game adaptations go, especially for that era, it does a really decent job and makes a very, like, passionate attempt to capture what made the game special. And I think it's very clear immediately with its music. So, the music is actually just taken from the games. It comes from the legendary Akira Yamaoka. They actually just re-recorded that soundtrack for the games and put it into the Silent Hill movie, and it feels so nice. It's very refreshing that they didn't try and, like, reinvent the condom here. They didn't hire fucking Paul Post and the Funky Boys from Fiverr to try and, like, reimagine a Silent Hill OST for this movie or anything stupid like that. They just said, we know you guys like this music, I like this music, it's coming in the film, we're re-recording it, making it fresh. I really appreciated that. It was clear from the very beginning of this movie. So now let's dive into the actual spaghetti and meatballs of Silent Hill 2006. It is a film that's trying to loosely adapt the first game. Like, they are getting across similar characters but used in different ways, and the story deviates pretty substantially from the games. It does use a lot of similar ideas and a lot of similar beats. And I think it does a decent balance of integrating its new stuff with what's been established in the games. It's not perfect, and there's definitely some wonkiness to it, but it's a good attempt at blending these two things together. The film starts with Rose, and her daughter Sharon is sleepwalking, and she finds Sharon on a huge cliffside about to like plunge to her death because she's in a trance and envisioning going home. Home being Silent Hill. And Rose is able to stop her from killing herself just in the nick of time. It eventually leads Rose and Harry being a character you'll know from the games, to really get curious about Silent Hill. Rose becomes consumed with the idea of bringing her daughter to Silent Hill to try and help her, to try and heal her with what's happening. Harry's very against it.
Have you actually read the websites, Rose?
Yes, Chris. Just trust me on this. Please, just trust me on this.
And what they've done, when this deviates from the games quite a bit, is they've turned Silent Hill, like the mythos of it, into more of just like a tainted ghost town. So you have like the really cliche thing of Harry scrambling away on the computer like he's hacking in there, reading about Silent Hill and this coal fire that's constantly burning underground. He's like, don't go! That's the place of evil! Really, there's a lot of dialogue in this movie that's a little silly and at times pretty cringe.
Honey, the adoption people said Sharon came from West Virginia. And Silent Hill is in West Virginia. I'm not giving up on her, Chris.
But I'm willing to write that off and give it a pass, because even in the games, that's become like a core part of their identity. Some of that like cheesiness in there and the way they talk sometimes being very unnatural and odd.
This town is full of monsters. How can you sit there and eat pizza?
So I didn't mind it that much in this movie, though I don't know if it was fully intentional a lot of the times. Anyway, though, Rose and Sharon are on their way to Silent Hill. A cop, Sybil Bennett, happens to take notice of something being a little off about the adventure when they stop for gas. And it leads to Sybil kind of chasing them, pulling them over, and then Rose, she goes pedal to the metal, Dominic Toretto mode, speeds off. It leads to a low-speed pursuit. They both crash and end up in Silent Hill. Sharon's missing. Now we are in Silent Hill with Rose and Sybil as they try and figure out what the fuck is going on.
My daughter, Sharon, she's in danger.
If you really cared about that little girl, you wouldn't have sped off.
Listen to me, she's ill.
When they get to Silent Hill, I was actually really impressed with how hard they tried to be faithful to the atmosphere of the games. Like, it's not perfect. It's always a really tall order to try and mimic that amazing atmosphere of a Silent Hill game, but the movie I actually thought did a really decent attempt. Like, they have it be like ash that's falling on them, they have the fog, there's even ways they film it sometimes where Rose is going through Silent Hill where they do like a fixed camera section. So there's multiple times where she'll be wandering through with like the lighter out in a fixed camera and you'll see her walk by and then like go to the next zone, wandering these tight hallways. I was really impressed. It was very clear that they played the games and had a deep respect for the games. I'll be totally honest with you, sports fans. For the first 30-ish minutes of this movie, I was scratching my head wondering what all the hate was for. Like, what's all the hoopla about this being bad? Like, yeah, it's not perfect or anything so far, but this is a 2006 video game adaptation. You wouldn't even use the word good in the same paragraph when talking about one of those from that era.
Well, I can't read.
And this one out here, feeling real decent right now. Especially when it came to the monsters. The monster designs, pretty close to how they appeared in the games, and this movie used almost entirely practical effects. They would have latex suits and makeup on like dancers and shit to do like the nurses and to do a lot of the other monsters. They did a great job in that department, I thought. Now, it's not to say there's no CGI here. There is some, and it is dated. It's 2006, of course. It's not going to be amazing in that department, but it's used sporadically. It's not like the bread and butter here. They really tried to use practical effects to make it as eerie as possible with the atmosphere, and I think they did a really good job with it.
The textures, whether they were slimy or dry or wet or crumbly or whatever. And the game was like the Bible.
Once they start really getting into their own story and their own ideas and characters, that's where things get very shaky. If you're familiar with the games, you know Harry. Big role to play in the games, you could say. In this movie, he gets nothing. That man is on the bench. Played by Sean Bean, whom I'm a huge fan of. But I gotta tell you something, Mr. Bean here got nothing to do on screen, unfortunately.
Rose!
He has a side plot where he's trying to find his wife and adopted daughter. In doing so, he meets some of the cops, and the cops are more privy to like the haunted shit and the horrid history of Silent Hill. So they try and like give you those little tidbits, those nuggets of lore, but that's it. He doesn't actually accomplish anything, and he doesn't ever really get anywhere. He's just always mad. Understandably mad because he wants to find his wife and daughter, but like he's only ever like talking to police, and the police are just stonewalling him, being like, "Do not go to Silent Hill. Look at the palms of my hands. They're burned." As Rose and Sybil are trying to run away from the darkness and figure out things going on, they run into Anna, who's throwing rocks at Dahlia. Dahlia, of course, is another character from the games, but in a very different way in this movie. Now she's Alessa's mom, and she's like trying to right her wrongs, but feeling like she needs to be damned, that kind of thing. Anyway, though, they meet Anna, who's throwing rocks at her, going like, "Boo, boo, heretic, blasphemer, boo, 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 get out of here, boo." So Anna then tags along for some reason, basically just telling Rose and Sharon like everything that she knows. Like she's trying to get out all of the exposition she can in her short time on screen.
Burning the witch held back the darkness. It stopped the apocalypse.
Side tangent real quick. This is a big complaint I have about the movie, especially towards the end. A lot of what happens is basically just a character telling you, and then this happened, and then that, then there was this, and then this. We cannot forget about this when this happened because this happened and then that happened. It's just a lot of them just like filling in blanks of like narrative bits and pieces. Rose gets fed all of the exposition towards the end anyway, so all of the pieces that Harry was getting basically just get solved. Now, of course, Harry's not a new character, they just use him in a new way, or really don't use him in any way, as opposed to the video game counterpart. The movie does have new characters like Christabella, who's the main villain. She's the leader of this cult, constantly, you know, burn the witch, burn the witch.
Mr. Electric, send him to the principal's office and have him expelled!
This movie had some like real wacky shit to it, where like a lot of it was done for the sake of shock, I feel. The best example of that is there's this scene with Pyramid Head, and as they're running to the church, Dahlia kind of summons Pyramid Head there. And Pyramid Head grabs Anna, rips off her clothes, she's fully nude now, and then Pyramid Head grabs her skin, her flesh, and gives it like a titty twister, and then rips all of her flesh off, like she was ripping the skin off a turkey leg, and then throws it at Sharon and Sybil, who get blood on them, and they go, "Ooh." It comes out of nowhere. Like, nothing else like that had happened in the movie up until this point. Like, some people had been eaten by bugs, but there was nothing like that. It just comes out of nowhere. So it does seem like there was a huge emphasis on trying to deliver shocking moments without them necessarily being jump scares. And a lot of what the movie does is take things from the game and throw it in here, like some really cool stuff from the game, throw it in here without ever actually making it make sense. So like Pyramid Head being here doesn't really work if you know the games well. Like Pyramid Head in this movie, they don't do a whole lot to really make that work because it really doesn't.
It's all coming back! I don't like it! I don't like to think about it!
But Pyramid Head is here, and Pyramid Head doesn't look cool. Sybil and Rose, they're being, escorted by the church because they believe they had no reason to believe that they were, friends of Alessa's or anything like that, heretics. But when Christabella goes to give a locket back, she notices that the girl in the locket looks a lot like Alessa, and thus she concludes that they must be burned because they're evil. Sybil has like this hero moment where she basically shoves Rose into an elevator and then closes the door behind her saying, "Go find your daughter." And then she stays behind and fights off the cult. Fights off. I'm using very loosey-goosey. She has a gun, but the gun's empty. The cult doesn't know that, so she's keeping them at bay. And then for some reason, instead of just like keeping the bluff up and leaving, she clicks the trigger, nothing happens, smiles, letting them know that there's no bullets, and then she gets beaten within an inch of her life. That was so fucking stupid. It feels like they really wanted to get like a noble hero sacrifice herein, but they couldn't write it properly. She had two options. She could have continued to keep up the bluff with the gun and just leave. It was working. Or she could have just went in the elevator with Rose. They couldn't follow them. Like, she only lasted like 10 seconds after shoving Rose in the elevator and it going down. So it's not like she bought her a lot of time anyway. She would have been fine to just go with Rose or just leave with the gun. She chose neither. Instead, she chose to just get her ass beaten by a bunch of pipes. After going through the nurses, Rose does meet Alessa. And I guess I should get into like the narrative parts of this because it deviates so heavily from the game. Even though they have characters that are from the game, like Harry and Alessa, of course, being like the main thing about this movie that moves it along. Alessa being this kid who has superpowers and basically traps everyone in this nightmare of Silent Hill. Well, her movie portrayal is very different than the game. In the movie, she's a witch. So she was bullied and abused and eventually burned as a witch. Burned by Christabella and all of the followers there of the Brethren. And while burned, she is getting more and more powerful because her hate is powering her, which leads to her basically trapping everyone in this nightmare dimension where she brings her nightmares to life to kill all of the people that had a role to play in burning her as a witch, or really just anyone there. And as her hate grew, she wanted to carve off a piece of her soul that was still innocent and could feel joy and love, and so she carved off that piece of her soul, which was Sharon, and Sharon ends up at the orphanage, which is then adopted out to Rose and Harry, which is how this all comes together. In the game, it's different. While yes, Alessa still does carve off her soul into Cheryl, that whole witch thing is never really a piece of it.
I'm no man, I'm a man. If you seen this shit.
That decision to go the witch route, I don't think is a bad call, but it's not really used overly well in this movie. It boils it down to like, Christabella and the cult, burn witch, always burn witch, we must, it's the righteous, the Lord demands this witch be burned, constantly. Just wasn't a huge fan of that change. I don't think it worked overly well, because then Christabella just becomes a really weak villain, because she's so one-dimensional. Just always, burn it! Ah, I hit my fucking foot on this coffee table. Can somebody please come burn this? It must be a witch to have hurt me. Alessa wants to punish everyone. She hates everyone. Sharon is a piece of her that's not hateful at all, but they're still the same person. And this Nightmare of Silent Hill is Alessa's creation to punish them, but she can't get into the church where Christabella and all the others are because their blind faith repels her for some reason. Rose hugs Alessa, and then they fuse together, like digivolve together somehow. Let's get towards the end, because that's where I think everything really kind of falls apart. I thought they did the ending terribly. At the end of the film, Christabella finds the real Sharon, not Alessa. Sharon was being protected by Dahlia, so they track down Dahlia and then find Sharon that way. So now they've got Sharon, Dahlia, and Sybil. All of the demons are here now, and they're about to burn them all. And they start with Sybil, whom they lower over a fire, and she burns to death. Just gets fucking torched over the fire. But it was just such a worthless death because she didn't have to. It was like, if she was just like using her thinking cap at all, she would have been fine. Eventually, after they fuse, Rose and Alessa, she goes to the church and she gives like this really big monologue, like this big speech about how she's a liar. Christabella's a liar, keeping you all in fear. You're all damned because of her. There's no witch. She was a misunderstood youth. She wasn't evil. You made her that way, and now you've trapped yourself in her hate. It's a monster you've created. Like a very cliche monologue. And then Christabella just stabs her.
No, she didn't.
Oh, this bitch is crazy.
Rose gets stabbed, and she's leaking out darkness because Alessa fused with her, and it allows Alessa into the church. So she comes up on a bed with a bunch of barbed wire and just starts slaughtering everybody, ripping them to pieces.
Oh no! Give me the strength to save you!
That's CGI, and it's pretty dated looking. That doesn't look very good. But anyway, she kills the whole cult. Rose is able to save Sharon. And Rose is saying, Sharon, close your eyes, because it's going to be very traumatic seeing all of that. But Sharon opens her eyes, and Alessa, the darkness of Alessa, creeps up on her, and the two stare at each other, and then fucking fusion dance again into one entity. So once again, Alessa has been made whole. At least that's the implication here, that Sharon and the darkness of Alessa have once again fused. So now Sharon isn't really Sharon, it's Alessa. So the movie ends with Rose and Sharon, who is Alessa, leaving Silent Hill and going back home to Harry. But It actually has a really cool final scene where when they enter the house, Harry is in the house in like the other dimension, so it keeps flip-flopping between worlds here. And it's actually pretty cool the way that they filmed that, the way that that looked. And then like Harry thinks he smelt Rose's perfume, so he gets excited. He gets up, he sees the doors open, thinking that Rose is somewhere here, but she's not. They never actually left Silent Hill. It's still all foggy, and then it becomes clear to Rose she never left Silent Hill. Roll credits. Like, I actually think that was a pretty cool way of ending it, but the actual narrative that leads to that I thought was really weak. I thought the movie was at its best when it was borrowing as much as it could from the games. I think when it tried to make its own path with like the whole witch stuff, as well as the, new villain Christabella, and like abandoning a lot of the things from the game, that's when it really lost a lot of its momentum. But I'll defend this movie as pretty good. Like, yeah, it's not extraordinary, and it's definitely not the best video game adaptation, but it's a pretty decent one. I think it's definitely overhated. There are plenty of things to not like about it, sure. It has its flaws, but it really does try, and in certain cases, succeed. I think everything they did with, like, the practical effects was great. And you don't really see that these days either, by the way. There's an over-reliance on CGI, and especially back in 2006, you would have thought that they would have done that as opposed to put all of the extra effort into making, like, these suits, these costumes, and all this makeup. And I appreciate that they did that because they wanted it to feel like the games felt. Again, for 2006, this is a good video game adaptation. Now, how does Silent Hill Revelations 2012 hold up? Not well. Spoiler alert, that movie fucking sucks so much ass. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the video here. I'll just do another video for Silent Hill Revelations. That movie is horrific. That movie is terrible. Not directed by Christoph Gans, though. That was a different director. So right now, as far as Christoph Gans coming back to work on a Silent Hill movie, I'm pretty excited because I did end up liking Silent Hill 06. That's really about it. So yeah. If there was a global leaderboard for horror movies watched, I imagine I would be in the top 50. And I say that sincerely. I think I have seen more horror movies than most people have seen movies in their entire lifetime. It's a genre that I am so passionate about because it's almost exclusively awful films. And by now, all of you know that I love bad movies. So bad they're good. I find them to be highly entertaining to just watch something that is objectively trash, but in an entertaining way. So that means that I am constantly consuming horror films, because bad movies and horror go together like cereal and milk. It's almost more impressive just how consistently terrible this genre is. It's just saturated with the worst throwaway garbage imaginable, just this stinky pile of dog shit for horror films that come out in recent years. Now, it's not all of them. There are some bangers out there, some diamonds in the rough for sure, but 99% of horror movies that come out are just not good. And I've seen like 99% of horror movies. So last night I was just going through this big rant about like Blumhouse just pumping out trash, as well as like a couple of horror movies that I really like Hereditary and Martyrs. So it was this mixed bag of just ranting about horror as a genre in general, and I just wanted to show you all of that real quick because I have seen more horror movies than I imagine most people in the world have. Movies you've never even heard of, I have seen. In fact, my least favorite movie of all time is a horror film that I bet zero of you have ever heard of past the times I've mentioned it over the years. It's called Let's Be Evil. And the only thing scary about this film is when you recognize that your time was wasted and you were directly insulted by sitting down to pop this piece of shit on the television screen. It's a movie about nothing, really. Like, when Squidward goes to that empty dimension to be all alone, there was more going on in that void than there was throughout the runtime of Let's Be Evil. The plot is supposed to be like these smart kids are in a bunker and then they decide to kill their babysitters, and that's like the scariness of it. But like, that barely even really happens in the film. It's actually just these tedious chores that you witness with some kids solving like fucking three-dimensional Rubik's Cubes. It's so lame. It is indescribable how bad this film is. It's not fun bad or anything at all. It is actually one of the most miserable movies you can ever really watch. So, point is, I've seen movies in this genre that no one else has ever even heard of. This went on Netflix in like 2016, and I'm pretty sure it was taken off within the same year because I doubt anyone was watching it. I don't know if it's still there or not, but that would be my guess. If I made this movie, I would be doing everything in my power to scrub its existence from the files. I'd be erasing it like that planet the clones were made on in the Star Wars prequel trilogy. I would be trying to scrub this from the fucking archives. It is that bad. But anyway, let me just go ahead and show you this full rant. Before getting into it though, I do want to just shout out Plague Seeker one more time. This is my newest comic series. Issue 1 just dropped. It is 80 beautiful pages of carnage, a wonderful story, and just the best art you'll ever see in your goddamn life. So Plague Seeker issue 1 is out right now. You can find it at badegg.co. I'll put a link to it in the description. Pick up a copy of this bad boy. Do it for me, huh? L take on Blumhouse. Brother, look at the... What take? They pump out some of the worst movies because it's going to make them money no matter what. Because the budgets are so small. What do you mean? Look at this list of almost nothing but stinkers over the last couple of years, except for, I think it's Black Phone, Five Nights at Freddy's, and they had one more that wasn't absolute abominable dog shit, and I can't recall off the top of my head over the last 3 years. So Imaginary, dog shit. Night Swim, super dog shit. Five Nights at Freddy's, fine. Exorcist Believer, dog shit. Totally Killer, probably 3 people saw that movie, so I'm imagining dog shit. Passenger, dog shit. Insidious Red Door, super dog shit. Unseen, I didn't see that one, so I don't know. There's Something Wrong with the Children, looks like dog shit. Sick, I think I saw that one. Probably dog shit. Also came out in January, so most likely dog shit. Megan, good. Nanny, dog shit. I don't think I saw Soft and Quiet. I didn't see that. Halloween Ends, super dog shit. The Visitor, super dog shit. And every single one of these movies has such a low budget that no matter how bad it is, it's going to make its money back. Well, actually, Imaginary has a higher budget than almost all of their films combined. Their VFX team went crazy on those awful monster designs, I guess. But it's usually like $1 to $2 million, $2 to $3 million. Jesus Christ. How did Night Swim have a budget of 15 mil? No, what? That movie was shot in 2 locations. That's it. That's gotta be some kind of tax fraud write-off type deal. That is not a $15 million budget movie. They didn't even use VFX, really. I don't know where that money could have even gone. Maybe they're counting in marketing budget, because it wasn't, like, highly marketed. But, I mean, look at the box office. These all make a killing, even though they're legitimately terrible. I don't know why more people don't... I've said this a million times. I don't know why more studios don't do what Blumhouse does. Just make cheap horror movies and pump them out. They will always turn a profit. Always. Go up to their early movies, they're capable of quality. They're capable of quality, absolutely. They fund some really good stuff. Like Invisible Man, I thought was a banger. Megan, I also liked. Like, even in recent times. It's not like they can't make good movies, it's just that they normally don't, because they don't need to. So they don't bother funding something that's going to be expensive and somewhat of a gamble. Jesus Christ, even Truth or Dare. The $3 million budget, $95 million box office. Oh my god, even Truth or Dare. That's crazy. See, like, they don't miss. They can't miss. These things are so fucking cheap, and yet they always can turn such a huge profit for no reason. Oh my god, even Unfriended. $1 million budget, $16 million box office. This would be a box office disaster for every other studio in the world except Blumhouse. This is a 16x return on investment. I don't know why more studios don't do it. I'll never understand why more studios don't do it. Oh my god, Ouija Origin of Evil. Fuck, this movie was terrible. $81 million box office. They can't not make oodles of cash. No, I still haven't seen Sinister. That's one of those movies I want to watch. I've heard nothing but good things about Sinister, but I've never seen it. Apparently the sequel's terrible, but I've never seen the first one, and then everyone praises it. So I want to watch it. I just can't imagine this movie, like, actually being scary. There's only, like, 2 movies I've ever seen that I would actually consider, like, unnerving to me, to the point where, like, I was like, damn, that was a pretty startling experience. Hereditary, which I think is the best modern horror movie up until the last 10 minutes, where it just becomes generic horror schlock, and Martyrs, which I just mentioned. I don't even know if I can type this in on YouTube and have it be terms of service compliant because this movie is so extreme. This movie, I legitimately think is one of the most disturbing films ever made. Elvis the Alien made the video on it, and he covers it, and he doesn't even quite capture everything about it that makes it so powerful. It's a French film, right? Yeah, so it's part of a genre called extreme new age French, or extreme, fuck, what the, it's been a while since I've gone over Martyrs, but it's like extreme French something is the category, and it is haunting. Like, it's not a movie that's just shock for the sake of shock like some of that dog shit like Serbian film. This is a movie that has such a deeply profound story with incredible acting and like a really thought-provoking message to it. Like I mentioned, it's a movie that I still actively think about from time to time. It was a lot. Like, at first I didn't quite grasp it, I guess, fully when I watched it, but the more that I like sat on it, the more I was like, damn, wait a minute. It's so hard to watch. It is legitimately hard to watch, yeah. Martyrs is the best movie that I don't recommend to people. Yeah, I could never in good faith recommend this to anybody, because it is a lot. Is it scary? Like, horrific. There's no jump scares, or, well, actually there's like 2 jump scares, but it's not that kind of horror. It's like a very psychological, very hard to look at kind of horror. It's disturbing, and it's known mainly for its gore. It was weak sauce, to be honest. Now, Imaginary is scary. True, this has got nothing on Imaginary. You're so fucking right. Yeah. Have you seen The Autopsy of Jane Doe? Super creepy. I think I saw that one a while ago. Is that the one from 2016? 2017? Had a lot of hype online. Because there was one of those, like, Autopsy of Jane Doe, the possessing of Lily Manchester, the possession of Grim Cheeseburger. Like, I've seen all of those, and they sucked ass. So if it was during that wave, then yeah, I probably saw it and didn't like it. This was during that exact wave I was talking about, like the taking of Deborah Logan, fucking the haunting of Sally Bacon Ranch. Like, it was like all of these movies were pretty much the fucking same thing. Another like classic that I haven't seen outside of Sinister is It Follows. I never saw that one. And yeah, we already went over the Pooniverse. We were just talking about that a little bit ago. Barbarian was pretty good. I like Barbarian. Thanks for your sub, Snowman. Have you ever done a horror movie tier list? It might be a fun stream idea. That is a pretty good stream idea, actually. I'm gonna write that down. That's not a bad idea at all. It'd be kind of nice, because I saw every single horror movie that ever hit streaming services from I think it was like from 2015 to 2017. So like anything that was released during that period, I saw every single horror movie. So I've got a catalog of some of the dumbest shit none of you have ever heard of. So that's a pretty good idea. Maybe I will do that. Martyrs is torture porn. It's not, though. That is kind of what it became known for like all the gore and stuff, but it is a movie that has an incredibly unnerving and deep message and concept. It's so much more than that. If it was just torture porn, it'd just be another throwaway piece of shit schlock film, but it's not. Teeth. Teeth was another one of those movies that had such a mystique built up around it. I remember it was during the 360 era when people were still watching like movies and shit from the Xbox dashboard. So you'd see, well, at least I'd see a couple of my friends watching Teeth, and then they'd hype it up like, man, that was so fucking disturbing. That shit was crazy. You're not ready for Teeth. You can't handle it. And then, like, I never bothered watching it, but then a couple years later, I was like, oh, I remember Teeth. People used to watch that on Xbox dashboard and said it was, like, crazy. I'll have to check it out. And it was so fucking silly. Like, it seemed like it was self-aware in its silliness. And then there's, like, the gynecologist who's like, Vagina denta! Vagina denta! It was a very cool movie. And then it set itself up for, like, a sequel I don't think ever came, where she was going to be some kind of vigilante superhero biting wieners off with her vagina teeth. Missed opportunity. It's not too late. They can bring the vagina teeth girl into the Pooniverse. She can fight Winnie the Pooh and Piglet by biting their cocks off. This is a super weird segue, but when I was taking a shit, I was closing some old tabs, and sometimes what I do is I write down things that I don't want to forget. And this is an older note, but I recognized I never talked about it. I went to a strip club like a little while back, and there was a stripper there who, like, during her performance, like, stopped everything, like, stopped all movement around her, like the other dancers, and grabbed one of the dollar bills. And I was like, oh, she's about to do like some kind of cool magic trick. And then she got to the middle of the floor, put her legs over her head, put the dollar bill on her vagina, and shot it out like a rail gun with an air blast. She was like airbending it with, with her pussy. So I wrote down in my tabs, stripper dollar air blast, to remind myself of that, because I wanted to talk about it, because I was so fucking impressed with it. I was like, Jesus, the distance on that. And then she went for like round 2 on it, and I was like, fuck, Jesus, she's got a cannon. And Vagina Denta just reminded me of it. Did you tip her? Yeah, Caleb and I were just fucking like throwing ones at her. Do it again! Do it again! That's my favorite trick! Whoa! How far did it go? Through the ceiling. I thought she was gonna fucking blast a hole through it. Like, you know how... You remember like in Tom and Jerry when they're spitting watermelon seeds like a minigun? That's what she was doing with dollar bills in her pussy. Well, with a dollar bill, I guess. It wasn't multiple. Though I guess if she had like started stuffing them, she may have been able to. I think I can do the same thing with my butthole. Not without shitting. I don't think so. It takes so much force and strain, you'd absolutely just poop. That's talent, brother. Still, to date, one of the biggest surprises I've ever had going to a horror film was actually enjoying the first Smile movie. I went into that thinking that it might just be fun bad, but that it stood no chance of being anything even close to decent. Because it had like a TikTok influence and this and that. I thought the odds were stacked against it, but I walked out of that theater smiling. Like, I thought it was just so good. Like, it was such a pleasant surprise. It takes a super generic concept that I had already seen a movie like in the past. Truth or Dare did something very similar with like the smiling right before death thing. And I thought this would just be another one of those throwaway slop horror films that I'd forget about 15 seconds after leaving the theater. But nah, Smile stuck with me. It's not like those other things where they just throw together something shitty, a few jump scares, and call it a wrap, you know, something like The Bag Man, or any of those other awful premises. Because everything gets a horror film these days. Literally the dumbest ideas ever get horror movies because they're cheap to make and usually turn a profit. So you have some shit come out like The Backwards Walk Man. If you see his cheeks coming at you, it's already too late. If his butt's facing you, you're already dead. But all this to say, I liked Smile. So I had a lot of expectations here on Smile 2, probably unfairly so. Yet, it exceeded them. Smile 2 is actually better than the first one. And people in stream chat that had seen it yesterday were telling me that much. They were saying that Smile 2 is actually better than the first one, and I agree. There are things I liked more in the first one, but overall I think Smile 2 is just a stronger film in general. So let me just go ahead and start glazing it like a donut real quick, but I do want to talk about some complaints that do get a little spoilery, but I'll get to those towards the end. Before even really getting into the meat of this, I do want to make a mention up top here, because I have to know that I'm not crazy. Like, maybe I'm possessed by a fucking sound demon or something, but this is the loudest movie I've ever heard in my life. I saw Smile 2 in a Dolby screening, which I've done for tons of movies that have come out, and I've never had something be this loud. Like, I'm talking anytime something happens on screen, it's like 5 sticks of dynamite get shoved into my ears, like it's some kind of Tom and Jerry gag. Like, even something like the main character opening a can of mints sounded like 5 dump trucks being thrown off of a cliff into a pile of broken glass and nitroglycerin. Everything was so loud. Now, I think the sound design and the audio was great in the film. I think they did a really good job with it. Like, I do want to make it clear, like, I think they crushed it in the sound department, but like, maybe the levels were a little too high in the theater I was in or something, where it became, like, actually painful. Like, there's a scene in the very beginning where a guy throws a sword, and it was already really loud, but he throws that sword, and holy shit, it was like I was back at a club, standing in front of the speaker. Like, that sword hits the ground, and it was like someone clapped their hands against my ears. Like what Jackie Chan would do in a kung fu movie to stun someone. It was crazy how loud some moments were here. Now, first and foremost, if you haven't seen the first Smile movie, you should know that Smile is built upon tension and jump scares. It has an unapologetic use of jump scares. It's not ashamed, And it actually gets very creative with the jump scares. Most of the time, when someone tries that shit with like a boo and like a really loud noise, like I'll just sigh and roll my eyes. It's really not exciting and it's kind of lame. And for a long time, people have criticized horror movies' reliance on jump scares for its scare factor, and rightfully so, because it is lazy. Smile 2, though, and the first Smile by extension, they take jump scares and they use them so well. So they build tension, effectively build tension. And instead of like releasing the tension with a jump scare, it just keeps building the tension and you're like hoping for a jump scare. And then when it comes, somehow you're still not expecting it and it hits. It actually hits. Their jump scares here are so creative. Now, they don't reinvent the condom with them or anything. The jump scares still have like the loud noise, scary face kind of thing going on. But the way that it's utilized is so good. It's like a pick and roll in basketball. Everyone knows it. Everyone knows pick and rolls are coming. But if you know how to use them well, holy shit, are they effective. And I think Smile 2 uses jump scares super well because it does the hard stuff of building tension and actually getting you invested and like kind of on the edge of your seat this whole time. So because of that, they're able to put a jump scare in there and have it not be cringe. And another thing that helps is characters that you actually care about. So when you're watching Smile 2, I think Naomi Scott does an incredible performance here. Like she has mastered the teardrop coming from her eyes with like 1,000-yard stare in shock. And she just sells the peril and like the hopelessness and the fear so well. Really, everybody in the movie does. Like, I was really surprised by how good everyone's performance was in the movie. So I did want to make a special note of that. But like the characters do have you invested. And it's not like they give you a ton of information about them. Like they're not fully fleshed out characters, but what's there is enough. Now, the movie follows pretty much an identical storyline to the first one, almost beat for beat, which is one of my complaints. I wish they had done more with maybe giving us a little bit more on, you know, the actual monster itself. Like, I understand keeping it a mystery, that is the most effective thing you can do with it, but it really does follow almost the exact same roadmap that the first one laid out. It just follows it better, like it's a more exciting ride. But I do wish they had explored other ideas a bit more. So our main character is a troubled pop star who's gone through something traumatic in the past. She's had issues with substance abuse, and she unfortunately watches one of her friends kill himself with the smile demon possessing him, which passes it on to her. This is all in the trailer. This isn't a spoiler or anything. So now it's her battling against this evil. And a lot of the things that are in place narratively were the same things that were in place in the first film, which is fine because it works and it's good. But like I said, I wish they explored a couple of other ideas and maybe did a little bit more with the universe and world building. But to counter my own complaint here, like I'm in fucking debate club, they did do something very different for the intro of this movie. They did a single take, one continuous shot action sequence. Like, I'm talking guns blazing, knives out, blood, gore, like all of that action sequence that felt like I had wandered into the wrong film for a moment. It was good. Like, they did a great job with that whole sequence. And it's very interesting how it ties into the rest of the movie. I'm not going to spoil anything, but I thought that was exceptional. And that had me hooked immediately. I just wish they had more moments like that where, like, it didn't stay the exact same course as the first film. But it's not like the biggest complaint because it still worked very well. I still really, really liked this movie. And since I mentioned that intro sequence, I do want to just point out the cinematography in this movie, I thought stood out. Like, I thought there were some really creative shots. Like, there were some really good shots and some good spins on some, like, classic shots that you've seen a million times in other horror movies that you just wipe your ass with in those films. Well, here they take those same kind of shots and they put like a nice little creative spin on it that works super well, that helps elevate the whole thing. Especially considering that a large part of Smile is playing with people's perception of what's real and what's fake. Since the smile demon gets inside of the victim's brain and starts pulling levers and shit like that worm out of Courage the Cowardly Dog, it is changing what is real and what's fake, as well as just the flow of time. Like, how long has it been? which is really fun as someone watching the film trying to figure out what's real and what's fake. Oh, that must have been real because of this. If it was fake, then how the fuck did she end up over there? You know, that couldn't make any sense if it was fake. No, how could that possibly be fake when I have a boner? That doesn't add up, you know? Like, it's a fun little game that the audience gets to play of figuring out, well, what's in her head and what's reality. And the film plays with that super well. And I think the way that it's shot helps with that too. And it's something I really appreciate. I really like the narrative to this, even though it is just kind of retreading the first one. I just still think it hits. And I like the pop star spin on it because then she's constantly surrounded by people in public. It allows for some really interesting new kind of horror scares that they try. Because in most horror films, you have the standard like haunted house shit or just like really dark shit. Smile 2, pretty much all the scary stuff happens in broad daylight. Lights on. Almost nothing happens in the dark. And that's pretty fun. That's pretty cool. I also was a little worried that the pop star angle would be overplayed a bit in this film, where it focused too much on like pop music and like musical performances and stuff, and I thought it would take away from the rest, the shit that people actually care about, which is the horror. It doesn't. The pop music does clearly play a role here, but it doesn't like overstay its welcome or anything, and when the songs come on, like, it's fun, and usually something happens during it. So it's not like it's a totally separate thing. Kind of like in Trap, one of the big critiques I had of it is that it felt more like a concert first and foremost before like a movie. I was a little concerned that maybe this might have something similar. No. The pop music is there. It's a small portion, and it's not like overused or anything. It's not like the bread and butter of the movie by any means. So if anyone was worried about that, let me just go ahead and put your mind at ease there. I think Smile 2 is just really, really solid. I thought it was fucking great. But I do want to get into a few complaints now. I already mentioned the one where I feel like it was just kind of the same thing again, but better. That is still one that I have, but my biggest complaint is actually the ending. But I just feel like the movie's ending was the most predictable ending that you would have imagined when you saw that the character was a pop star. And it's something tons of horror movies have done in the past. That, well, now the genie's really out of the lamp and everyone's got it. The bad thing's everywhere now. And I just don't like that. I think that is so overdone. I recognize that when it comes to Smile, there's nothing necessarily new about it. It just executes everything better than what else came before it. However, in this ending, I don't think it did it better. It did it the same as tons of other horror movies that end with Pandora's box is open, now everyone's affected. It just did that, and not really in a new way. So I was kind of underwhelmed there. I get it conceptually, like it's a strong conclusion. I just couldn't help but feel less than satisfied. Especially when you consider that the ending of the film also nullifies a lot of the film's best moments. This is a big spoiler. I'm going to try and tiptoe around it as to not ruin this. But the way the movie ends, it kind of rewrites and undoes a lot of the best scenes from the film, like retroactively. And that kind of sucks. Like, it kind of takes the wind out of its own sail, which I just really didn't like. You know how everyone hates that trope, that cliche of, it was all a dream, that kind of thing? Well, I felt the same way with the ending of this movie. I just really felt like, man, that really kind of takes a lot of the impact away, what you've just done here. So hopefully I didn't like say too much there that spoiled it for anyone, but I just felt really let down a bit by the direction the ending went. Like, I'm talking the very end, like the last 5 or 6 minutes, like not long. I think everything up until like the last 5, 6, whatever minutes was so strong. And narratively, I even think the last 5 and 6 minutes is a strong conclusion, like from a plot perspective. But from a viewing perspective, it just really feels like, man, that really does take away a lot of the fucking oomph with what we had been experiencing up until this point. So that's by far my biggest complaint, but I don't think it like makes this movie that much worse in my eyes or anything. I still think this is a great film. I still think it is better than the first one. So overall, I think Smile 2 is 100% worth seeing. I think it is so good. So I definitely recommend it. I liked it a lot. And yeah, that's about it. Yeah. Oh, hey, wait, this is the same actress from, the other short. The Look-See. My immersion's broken. Or it's the same universe and this woman is getting haunted by the laundryman and the Look-See. And just has shit luck. Jesus, my room smells like straight asshole right now. But I didn't even fart, nor dogs aren't even in here either. Maybe the laundryman snuck in and blasted a haunted fart in here. Get the fuck out of there! He's doing laundry. Glory Hole Action 3? Is that a horror short? Okay, so she gets the... You know what, let's just get to the plot point. She gets the armoire, there it is. Now scare me. Imagine being afraid of a piece of furniture. The tension! Can cut it with a fleshlight. God damn it, like what the fuck do you expect as a horror director? I'll make this whole thing about a haunted armoire. How can I show it's haunted? I'll have it very slowly open a sliding glass door. Dope. That'll send shivers down the spines of all 9-year-olds. Fuck! What happened? Did the armoire just eat her clothes? Oh, the hair on her neck is standing up. You know, again, she clearly suspects the armoire of foul play. Why would she still trust it to keep the clothes in there? Why not just immediately get rid of the armoire? Like, hey, you know what? Spit my clothes out. I can hear the tapping in there. I'll get rid of it. Yeah, honestly, she should just call Billy the Exterminator. The man's exterminated every pest on the planet. Might as well tackle a few ghosts. Why is he doing that? Ah, it must have been the wind. Imagine being such a pathetic demon that the only thing you can possess is a fucking armoire. Oh my god!
Hey, hun!
Hey, hun, you mind if I look hot in front of this armoire?
There's a man floating above us.
Hey, don't give away his hiding spot. What the fuck?
I don't see a man.
It's just Pro Jared's dick pic on a string. It was that easy. Like, I'll be honest with you guys. If I saw a man floating above my bed, I wouldn't be able to just fall back asleep and be like, what the fuck are you doing in here? And how are you doing that? Chris Angel, stop fucking floating above my bed. I've had enough. Oh, and yeah, it's just Billy the Exterminator in the attic checking for rats. I like to imagine all of these horror shorts have a perfectly logical explanation if you look through it through the lens of it could have been Billy. That's not Maribeth? Don't fall for the trick.
I promise.
Well, what did you expect? The worst chef in Hell's Kitchen history?
In the blue kitchen, chef. What do I need? What did I just call out?
He seems like a nice guy, at least. They must have brought him on for his personality.
I'm talking to.
I don't even know what the hell's going on or what happened or why.
He sounds like a cartoon character.
Please, kids. How dare you condescend to me? I'm 28 years old. I've been a professional in this industry 14 years. I work at a camp and I work my ass off.
I'm a Navy SEAL. I have 500 confirmed kills. You will respect me, Raj.
You stupid. Douchebag. No, bro. You're attacking me.
He's like Samuel Tarly right now, but with a worse attitude.
Man. You bitch. You're a waste of life, Raj.
He's a waste of life because he can't make pasta. I can't make pasta either, Boris. You want to come say that to my face? Huh? Huh, big man Boris? I'm on your side, Raj. Fuck these guys.
Listen, if you just too much.
I agree. Trev could not take Raj in a fight.
Trev is at its
Fuck this Trev guy. Cause, I mean, Raj was done so fucking dirty, no respect for him. The man's 49 years old, putting nuts to butts in the kitchen, going toe-to-toe with Chef Ramsay. Yeah, I saw this movie last night. I'm sure almost none of you had any interest in seeing this, but I still have to rant about it anyway. It's not a horror movie per se, but I think it kind of billed itself as one, so I went into it expecting it to be one, and I think most people are under the impression. It's one of the sillier films of the year. I don't think it's worse than Tarot. I don't think it's worse than The Strangers. But man, this was still so bad. And what's really cute is that it actually has the old lady from Tarot. So she now has an incredibly stacked 2024, where she has now been in 2 unbelievably atrocious stinkers. And that's kind of admirable. And she plays the exact same character in this movie as she did in Tarot for the most part. The premise is cool. So I actually like the premise. The premise is basically Dakota Fanning, she finds herself in the forest after a pet delivery gone wrong. And she stumbles upon this weird building with these 3 strangers in there. And every night, they have to lock themselves in, and they get watched by mysterious entities on the outside that they can't see, they can only hear. And it lends itself well to some kind of cool mystery. But does anyone care about spoilers? I can't imagine anyone really gives a fuck. Like, is anyone to shake their fist at me? Like, how dare you? If I get into spoilers? Okay, most people are saying no, they don't care about spoilers. If you care about spoilers, my apologies. You can write a strongly worded letter to the manager. So, the film has a cool premise. And about halfway through the movie, probably not even halfway through the movie, they kind of just immediately show their whole ass and they tell you what the Watchers are. And you get to see the Watchers, and they're basically just like these generic tall slender men. And it turns out they're fairies. Like evil fairies. And then the movie dives into like actual Tumblr fanfic, where it's like, before the war, there was humans and fairies living in peaceful symbiosis. We coexisted with the fairies together, but we feared their shape-shifting abilities, how they could become us. So we ripped off their wings and we forced them underground and we locked them under a stone. And now, they can't leave this forest because we asked them not to, basically. So, what they're being watched by is fairies that study them so that way they can take their shape better. It's so fucking dumb. This is not Oh, yeah. So it's not M. Night Shyamalan, it is his daughter. This is a Shyamalan family production, basically. And in classic Shyamalan fashion, it's a cool premise that they had nothing good to do with it, past the idea, like the ideation. So let me just start breaking down some scenes for you. So, shit just happens for the sake of it happening without any explanation for why this shit is happening. So it starts off okay because the premise is fun. And then, as things start to unfold, Dakota Fanning is rebellious and she's got a dark and mysterious past. And she decides to start breaking the rules that the old woman has set. One of the rules is don't go into the burrows because that's where the Watchers come out. And she goes into the burrows with the help of this guy. I forgot his name. She goes into the burrows and she sees like bicycles and like children's toys and stuff. And then all hell breaks loose because the fairies start shape-shifting. But they know this. Like, there's no explanation given, really, like a good one, for why the fairies can't leave the forest. They could just walk out of the forest. There is an explanation given for why they can't leave, the humans here, because they're lost and they can't be out at night because the fairies hunt at night and they don't like the sun. They're like fucking vampires. So they can't leave the forest. I get that. That makes sense. But the fairies, the only explanation for why they can't leave the forest is because they were forced underground 1,000 or like fucking thousands of years ago. But they could just walk out. Like, there's no magical force field preventing that. They could just walk the fuck out and then dig a hole. Like, they're afraid of the sun, walk out during the night, dig a hole, stay there during the day, get out of the hole, walk out in the night, dig more holes. It turns out there was a professor who built this building and who built this bunker underneath the building because he's been studying the fairies. And this was highly unnecessary to even include in there. They just wanted to make him like an evil guy. He's like, he recorded himself with this webcam. He's like, sailor's log, 2009. I started construction on the bunker. I hired locals from the town nearby for fucking 5 schmeckles an hour to build it for me. And I urged them to stay out at night so they'd get mauled and killed by the fairies. Lord, forgive me for my sin. But it's like, brother, you didn't have to do that. Like, you didn't have to just have them die. Like, that's highly inefficient, because then you have to go get more workers every single time and recycle over their dead fucking corpses. Like, you would have to walk over so many bodies for that to happen. You could have just, like, had them do the work, and then had them go home before it gets dark out, and then have them come back. Like, you didn't need that. But it's things like that. Eventually he catches a fairy, and he's, like, training it like a pet. So they're watching these videos of him training the fairy, like learning from the fairy, and then randomly in his last entry he's like, I've got to kill it. I've got no choice. I'm going to take it behind the barn and I'm going to fucking shoot it in the heart. And then I'm going to shoot myself. For no fucking reason. It's like he's spent like 100 days with this fairy in a cage, and then he's just like, you know what, I'm tired of playing with this toy. I'm going to kill it and then kill myself. So he does. Or so you think. So it turns out that fairy was actually a half fairy. Because thousands of years ago, fairies and humans used to fuck. And what happened is, they gave birth to halflings that live amongst us in secret. And that fairy that he captured was a halfling. One that could walk in the day. They called her the Daywalker. Her real name that she said was Arinthabuna or something. Arintha Rancor, Balrog, I don't remember. Something like that. But all of this is just like getting vomited at you all at once towards the end of the movie. It's just like an overwhelming amount of just nonsense. Anyway, the professor eventually in one of the recordings says, hey, I left the boat over there. You can just like go this direction, get on the boat and leave if you want. So they do. And while they're going there, keep in mind, they're fully aware that all of the fairies can change their shape into human beings. This fucking goober here, this absolute imbecile, as they're running towards the boat, he hears one of their friends in the forest and, like, struggling. He's like, John, help! I think his name is John. He's like, John, I need help. Please. Please. And he's like, I'm coming! So he grabs the guy, and turns out it's not John. So then he dies. And they take his shape. And then they sail into the town. And then, big plot twist, the old lady was a fairy the whole time. She was the halfling the professor kept as a pet. Because it turns out the professor had a wife, and the wife died. And the professor tried to train a halfling, or tried to train a fairy to shapeshift into his wife so he could keep fucking her. And that's who this is the whole time. It was a fairy. So, like, his whole thing was like, their shapeshifting abilities can bring anyone back from the dead. Which they can't. It's not resurrecting the dead. It's literally just cosplaying as the dead. It's LARPing as a dead person. So him having this galaxy brain scheme of bringing his wife back never had any water to it, like no salt, because his wife is still dead. You're then just... You have a puppet of your wife. That's it. At that point, just get a doll, right? Like, it's stupid. His plan is stupid from the beginning. And then... she's mad because fairies hate humans because of what they did, which is why the Watchers watch them and, like, kill them if they break the rules. They study them and then kill them because they're mad. 1,000 years worth of bad blood and a grudge. But when old lady is confronted by Dakota Fanning in the climactic final battle, Dakota Fanning's like, I know what it's like to not feel like you belong. Because it turns out her dark and mysterious past is she got her mom killed because they were on a road trip. And she was like a little brat who rolled down the window, and the mom was like, can you roll up that window? And then Dakota Fanning's like, I hate you! I hate you! I hate you! I'm not rolling down the window! I'm not rolling down the window! So the mom's like, what are you doing? Why are you freaking out? And she's like, I'm gonna roll up the window myself. So the mom starts rolling up the window, and Dakota Fanning's character puts her fingers out the window and gets them crushed, and she's like, ah! ah! And then the mom's like, what happened? And then she crashes into a car and dies. So she carries that guilt with her the entire time. And she, like, trauma dumps that towards the end. So then the halfling gets all of that information, and Dakota Fanning's like, the professor never told you? You're half human. And she's like, no, I can't be. I'm so conflicted. And then she's like suffering from the revelation that she's half human, half fairy, and then her wings pop out of her butt, and then she flies away. And now she's looking for more halflings. It's pretty fucking bad. It's pretty bad. But it's not nearly as bad as some of the other trash this year. But I like, there was multiple times where I did this, like I gestured this emote, because they were just making things up out of nowhere with no real payoff or build up to it. They're just like, oh yeah, end this. Oh yeah, end this. Because of that. Because I said so. Should watch a bad movie in the sub Discord with everyone. That's kind of a fire idea. But yeah, I just wanted to share that because I saw this last night. I just had to relay the information. No, I really think the Shyamalan family has great ideas. This is a cool premise for a movie. What they need, what the Shyamalan family desperately needs, is somebody to flesh out their premise better than they can. That's what they need. Like, this movie could have probably slapped.